mercy, look at how the time goes.
And welcome everybody to this episode of the Coming Home Podcast with John Allen. Today I'm talking with a good friend of mine. I haven't seen you in quite a while, Eirik Sørvik. How you doing?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm hanging in there. I'm hanging in there. It's another good day in Norway, man.
It depends. If you're as sensitive to the sun and heat as I am, it's pretty grueling.
You know what? Sensitive to the sun. Let me tell you something. I've tried to say this to people before, and they just don't get it. They don't believe me.
Yeah.
I've been in Norway now for 19 years, something like that. And I noticed right away from that very first summer back in 2002, there is some, I don't know if it's the ozone layer. I don't know. I don't know what the thing is, but the sunlight here in Norway, in all seriousness, it feels like I'm baking in a microwave oven.
Oh, really?
I get heat rash. I get burnt. Like that never happened to me before back home in the States.
It's not just because you dismiss the dangerousness of the rays because of the longitude.
I don't know. I don't know. Is Norway closer to the sun? I don't know what's going on, man.
No.
But Norway does have the highest occurrence of skin cancer.
You know what? I got a bit where I mention that these days.
Oh, man.
I just bring that up. I start railing a bit against the sun and stuff and how Norwegians don't have good habits when it comes to this. And I say, oh, yeah, we have higher occurrence of skin cancer than Australia, which is a little fun fact. Well, it's a fact.
It's not so fun, but it is a fact.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
No, there is something about that. I don't know. What is it? It's because it's so dark in such long periods of time throughout the year that when the sun does come out, you guys you've just got to get it.
I think it's also like my ex-wife. She's from California. She's from Los Angeles, and she just knows how to open the doors and windows to make that cross breeze work out. And yeah. Norwegians we don't know that stuff. We know how to navigate on icy roads and slopes, and Californians look a bit silly doing that. But the sun we're definitely not good with.
That thing about the cross breeze, you're speaking some truth right there. My wife, I tell you, we have almost had our marriage ended because she shut a door or a window that has killed my cross breeze.
Sounds like you got your priorities straight.
Got my priorities straight. Shout out to my Snoopy. So I just got to ask you, what is it that got you into stand-up comedy?
Initially, I remember being a kid and, I started discovering things like Seinfeld and then Eddie Murphy and stuff like that. And then when I was 18, a friend of mine put me onto Bill Hicks, and I realized, you can say some home truths with this. It doesn't always have to be funny. You can be uncomfortable. You can rain some stuff down on people. And that's when I fell in love with it, but I never thought I had the aptitude for it. I thought different people do that. People who are outgoing, naturally funny,
Well, I would classify you as naturally funny. I like your act. I love it. I haven't seen it often. Maybe 3 times I've seen you on the mic, but each time I thought you did well. But I do see that quiet and shy and introverted part of you. Am I right? Is that there as well?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. I started doing stand-up just a few months after you. A couple of months after you, I think, because you started in March 2019, was it?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, on my the same week as my birthday, my 31st fourth birthday. God damn.
That's a hard number for Norwegians, I guess.
This is terrible to have on wax because English is my big pride. It's the one thing I'm unabashedly proud of. But
and you should be. Your English is perfect.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
34th birthday. That same week I went on stage for the first time because I was like, well, let's find out. I've been wanting to do this. It doesn't feel right, but let's try it. And it's just stuck. It was a big aha moment for me. It's like, oh, that anxiety of mine is right at home up here.
That's interesting that you touch on that because I am I say some crazy stuff in front of the mic. I really do. But at heart, in my day-to-day life, I am very much the isolationist, the introvert. anxiety has a place in my life. But you
don't make waves.
No, well, yeah, I do that. Okay. Quite unintentionally, but it happens. Okay. Hello, podcast. No, but I look at doing stand-up as a treatment for that introverted side of me. In other words, I'm consciously forcing myself into a difficult situation. Is there any elements of that with you stepping in front of the mic? Are you trying to battle? No. Are you trying to battle something in your persona?
Actually, my path there was interesting because there's this. My favorite comedian is a guy called Stuart Lee. He's a British guy, and he's got this one bit where he talks about how he's in a cab. It's the same day they're voting on the same-sex marriage bill in the UK. And a Hindu cab driver tells him that, that goes against whatever thing he believes in. And he's like, I wonder which Hindu god prescribes that you shouldn't have sex with somebody of the same gender. I hope it's the one that looks like it's the result of the sexual union between a man and an elephant. And then he goes, I didn't say that in real life. I didn't say that then because I'm not funny in real life. I thought of it 2 weeks later, and then I wrote it down, and I came to you guys, and I said it here on stage. And that's literally what he says. Yeah. And that to me made me go, oh, it's a process. It
kind of explained the process, yeah.
Yeah, and it made me go, okay, so you don't have to be the funniest guy in the room, Mr. Life of the Party. You can be Mr. Awkward in the corner with your thoughts. But when you go on stage, you can turn that cannon, cannon that's pointed in towards you. You can aim that outward and make people laugh because stand-up. There's another thing that's interesting about stand-up. Like I listen to this podcast. Can you plug other podcasts here?
Sure, absolutely. We love everybody.
If you like in-depth talks about stand-up, there's one called Let's Talk About Sets, as in stand-up sets. Yeah. And they talk, at one point they have a guest on and they go, at what point did small talk get hard for you guys? And then they all agree like, oh yeah, around year 3, it becomes painful to do small talk. And that's because small talk is the opposite of what you do on stage. When you're on stage, you stare into the heart of darkness. You want to talk about stuff that's not proper. But small talk is about the opposite. It's about not touching any nerves at all. So stand-up is basically priming yourself to become good at not doing small talk.
That's a good way of looking at it. So you got the desire to do stand up. How much work did you do on your material before you got in front of the mic that first time?
Actually, I went to this very, very low key mic at a Mediterranean restaurant in Oslo called Hobsuck, and they just have a back room, and there's a good bunch of people, a lot of regulars, and they're all just there to have a good time and be supportive of people, right? And I was the only guy doing stand-up.
What was it, like an open mic thing for people to perform whatever?
Yeah, straight open mic, yeah. And first time I went, I was just like, I'm just going to be in the room. I'm just going to, case it, and then I'll come back next month. So that 1 month, I actually sat down and I was writing, and I came in with some risque material, like stuff I would be very hesitant to do now because I don't feel I have the chops. But it was true to me, and you got to start from there, right?
Sure.
I went up, and I did 10 minutes, I think, which is a lot for somebody who's just starting, but you don't know it at that time.
Yeah.
And I did really well, and then halfway through the set, I was like, oh, this is actually going well. And then I started freaking out. Like a kid, somebody's let go of the bike, and then they realize I'm doing this on my own, and then they, crash. Yeah. I didn't quite crash. I got off stage before that happened, but that was my first experience. Yeah.
But you could feel the crash. You could feel the crash.
Oh yeah, coming. I could feel myself wavering as I realized, oh, I'm doing it.
How difficult is is it an issue for you to be able to remember your material? That's probably my biggest problem. I have this is the same thing when I'm on stage singing as a musician. Yeah. I really have a problem remembering lyrics or remembering my material. Even when I'm the one that wrote the song, I'm the one that wrote the stand-up material, but I can't remember it when I'm in that moment. Is that an issue for you?
Oh, absolutely. Less so after I got more comfortable on stage, because when I used to get nerves and stuff like that, then I'd wig out and then you'd forget stuff and you'd rush and, but less and less. But the thing about stand-up I find is like you have to keep so many things in mind, right? So it's your cadence and how you say things, where you put your emphasis, your body language, what's my material, And then you got to feel the room and be like, oh, okay, they really like that bit. Let's milk that a bit, or let's acknowledge something that happened in the room. And there's just so many things you have to be aware of at the same time that it's so easy to just, I forgot that one tag that would really tie the bit together.
Yeah. I remember reading one interview with Chris Rock. This was from maybe around 2002, 2003. And Chris Rock said that he has a technique where he wants to punch the audience in the face 3 times. Like, let's say he has a joke about, I don't know, he's going to say something about white people, and he'll say, and I'm just making something up here, but to illustrate, he would say like, white people can't dance. Okay, that's the first punch, and then the audience will laugh. And then he'll say, no, and they really can't dance. And when they dance, they look like this. And then he'll act it out, and then they'll laugh again. And then he'll tie that again by saying, you know what I'm saying? It's a 3-way thing, and it's like it's a well thought out technique that he has. Do you have any Eirik-isms, techniques within your technique that you try to use?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I'm still figuring out my voice. I'm like, I can picture myself a year from now or 2 years from now being like, I was just going on stage just wearing my me suit, and then I finally found a comic version of that. I can picture myself doing that, because right now it's just a souped up version of me. But there's definitely things I do. Like, one thing I do, I tend to sometimes, some of my bits, like, they go flat on purpose, and then comes what seems like a saver, like a line that's supposed to just be like, oh, well, I can improvise it funny and relieve the tension. But actually, some of my jokes are relying on that. It's like, actually, the worse the run-up goes, the better the actual joke is, because it relies on the breaking that tension.
Yeah. I like to hit them with, I call it the ooh, ah, ha, ha.
Yeah.
I'll say something like, for example, I have a bit about my son overdosing and dying on heroin. I mean, that's terrible. And I say something along those lines, and the audience literally very often is, ooh. Yeah. And then I come with a little something where it might make them smile reluctantly, and there comes the and then I hit them with the punchline, and then the laughter comes. So it's that swinging of emotion that you try to get out of the crowd. It's kind of fascinating. It's very difficult to do, but when it works, it's instant success.
Actually, seeing really good comics, I mean, if you look at people like, Chris Rock or Louis C.K., they got them so good that they can be storytellers, and they can just hold the mic and seem like they're just relating to you, right? Yeah. But if you look at their older material, it's so clear. I'm going to walk you to the left, and then I'm going to punch you to the right, and you're going to feel it even harder because I committed to walking you to the left, right? Actually, that's something I've been getting more and more conscious about. There's a guy called, I don't know if you know Yngve Humlum.
Yes.
Very funny comedian. Yeah, okay, yeah. Very, very, for people who don't know, he's very, very, like, his style is so lethargic. He seems like he's not having a good time. He seems very stressed out about going on stage. And he was giving me a note the other day, a few weeks ago. Like, he was saying that, Eirik, you're like me. You're one of those depressed, cynical academics. Why are you smiling so much on stage? And, he doesn't like it. He says he'd like to wipe my smile off with his fist. That's literally what he said to me. And the point was well taken, actually, because after that, I started being a lot more serious. And, like, the urge is like, oh, the joke worked. And then you want to laugh and be a part of that fun time, right? But if you can hold the serious energy, if you can be the fool, I think it's even funnier still sometimes. So that's something I'm working on.
So what does your ratio of mic success versus bombing on the mic? Are you more have you been more often successful or more often you're bombing because you're trying out new stuff?
This is so hard to judge, because I feel like every time I level up a little bit, like a few months will go and I'll feel like, oh, I'm grasping something I didn't grasp before. And then I'll be way more critical of my, I could do sets that would be like unmitigated successes for me a month ago, but now they're like, nah, it's not good enough, So I don't know if I want to say I've had 2 or 3 good sets. I know that much.
I've had some great sets, but I will say that I don't want to say I've bombed more than I've killed, but I will say that I have been dissatisfied more often than I've been satisfied. I've got a high standard. I'm constantly analyzing what I do. I record all of my sets, and I listen to them afterwards. And one thing that surprises me is very often when I walked off of the mic feeling pretty bad, thinking I didn't do well at all, and I go back and I listen to it, I'm like, wait a minute. Yeah. I thought I was bombing, but people are laughing.
Yeah.
So I think my biggest issue, the thing that I need to work with the most, is to get out of my head while I'm on the mic. I just need to do my routine and analyze it afterwards. I think I'm analyzing it during, and that's not good. That's not good.
Also, you're not relying on a shtick of being some sort of loser. I mean, you're pretty comfortable on stage, and you come across as a jovial, vivacious kind of guy, right? Whereas some of us, we come across as kind of we're bona fide losers,
Yeah.
And you don't want confidence because that'll screw up your set.
Well, you have this charming underdog thing about you when you're on stage. It's like, okay, come on, let's listen to this guy, and then you get up there. And it just fits. Your material fits that persona that you portray before you even start talking.
That is very nice to hear. I don't, it's hard to get good feedback and stuff, and people commenting on your essence and what you come across as. And the more people get to know you and stuff, the more they'll bring to the table. So getting somebody who's seen me, as you say, 3 times, and that's valuable to me. But if I listen back to my sets and stuff, generally, I've had the same experience as you're talking about, where I go, oh, that was a weak set, and then I listen to it and I'm like, I didn't waver as much as I felt I did. That person was really liking it. That's one of the things I love about listening to old recordings and stuff. It's like there's somebody who can't help themselves.
Yes.
You broke them.
Well, that's I always do my best to play off of that. I enjoy hecklers. And I think there's 2 different types of hecklers. There's the hecklers that are actively trying to disturb you for whatever reason. They've just got that meanness in them, which I think is actually really out of line. But again, I welcome that challenge. And I've had those hecklers. But then there's the other hecklers who feel they're liking you so much that they feel like they have to join you in a one-on-one conversation in front of the crowd.
Good joke. I got a topper for that. And they'll throw one in.
The best night I ever had was in Mjøndalen. We were 4 or 5 comedians there. It was packed. Olsen på hjørnet in Mjøndalen. And it's a great place for stand-up. Next time we're going to do something out there, the club here in Drammen, next time we're going to do something out there, I'm going to let you know. See if I can get you in there, man. It's a great place. They love stand-up there, which is a problem at least in this part of Norway. It's hard to find a good stand-up crowd. I'm not trying to be mean, but people around here seem to not. It's not the same as it is in Oslo. In Oslo, you can go to places and they're ready for stand-up. Whereas here in Drammen and in the districts around Drammen, you kind of have to. It's hit or miss whether or not that crowd is there for stand-up.
You don't have to tell me because I'm from the northwest coast of Norway, like Sunnmøre.
That's right.
And that's another reason why I started so late, because I lived there for 7 years leading up till 2018, and there's no place for me to
stand-up
go to perform.
community. No.
There's 9 hours drive to Trondheim. There's 9 hours south to Bergen, and there's 9 hours to Oslo. I'm perfectly equidistant between everything of interest.
Really isolated in the stand-up world. No, but what I was going to say, one of the best shows I had was there in Mjøndalen, and talking about hecklers, there were these 3 ladies sitting right in the front row, and you've seen me, and you see me sitting here now. I'm a big muscular black guy, so I get up on stage and I was wearing my jacket, and I took my jacket off, and the lady in the front row went woo woo like that, and I'm like, okay, here we go. And I just started playing off of that about, the black sexuality thing. And I didn't stay on that topic, but just that relationship, if you will, with those ladies sitting right there in the front, and that they were so vocal.
Yes.
It played into my act, and I had maybe almost 10 minutes of improvisation based upon what those ladies were saying and doing. So
you're way more comfortable improvising than me.
Well, it's not that I'm comfortable improvising. It's just that was one moment. That was just one moment that I was, I don't know, fortunate enough to see and just grasp onto, and it went well. But then,
that stuff will earn you so many points because people realize you're in the room. It's not like you're going to wheel across town and say the same thing. It's like, no, that was for this room.
Exactly. And therein lies, for me, the biggest challenge. How do I keep it fresh? How do I keep it new? Because as I said, there's not a lot of opportunities to do stand-up around here in the Drummond area. And you tend to, at the Drummond Comedy Club, we have our, now we're taking a break from it, but for a while, every other Wednesday, we would have our thing, but it would always be the same people showing up. And it's like, I'm not ready to move on to new material because I'm still working on my old stuff.
Yeah, no, I get that. In the beginning, I was so reluctant to bring the same set over, even if I didn't know the same people were going to be there, because I just felt like, well, if somebody else is there and they see me do the same set, I felt weird about that until I saw a guy, Espen Johnsen, go on and he did a joke about, he was talking about how Wikipedia gives Hitler a fair shake. You look down his list of achievements and stuff, and it's like, oh, okay, got early elected into parliament and stuff. This dude, he gets a fair shake. First time he did that set, the crowd was like, and the second time they were like, okay. And then the third time they were dying, So that made me go, okay, yeah, you got to workshop it and keep it fresh. And
you have to work through it. And it's an interesting process because, for example, I did my set I think it was the last time I saw you. No, not the last time, but the time before that at Coffee Mead. I was working on all new material. I did that material and it went fairly well, as I remember. The next night, I came back to Drummond and did the same set, and it bombed. I'm talking crickets chirping, and people were sharpening their knives, ready to go after me. It just went horrible. So,
how was the room for the rest of the lineup?
There were a couple guys that did quite well, absolutely, yeah. So maybe it was just the timing, it was the delivery. I listened to both of them, and there was some variation. There were some nuances that were a little bit different, but I don't know. It just totally bombed the second night. I don't know.
I mean, I've only done one set in Drummond, and that was it was a bit rough. Thankfully, I brought two friends, so they gave me some support. But I think I was on like third, and the first kid was a completely fresh kid. I remember that, and he did that rookie thing, like, let's just go for pedophile jokes right off the bat. And it's
I remember that night. But
that's not 101.
Yeah, but it's just I don't want to say anything bad about the people of Drummond, but I don't see Drummond as a stand-up comedy town. I just don't. It doesn't seem. Yeah. I mean, I've been there at some of these nights at Union Scene and at the when the Drummond Club is doing their thing, and some of these guys are killing. Babek Namati, he doesn't have a bad set. He doesn't have a bad night. He kills every time. And yet the crowd has been like, eh.
Yeah.
So
I've had that experience a few times, being in a room, seeing somebody just hammer in a really good set, and I'm like, what? Why aren't you laughing, people?
Yeah.
So it's such a strange thing. I don't know. And also, when you're talking about material working one day and not the next, I've had times where I was like, I just think of something to top or tag onto a joke in the moment, and it really works. And I'm like, oh, that's the thing that'll tie it together. And then the next time when I do it on purpose, it's just not, I think it's so hard to get the right energy and stuff. And I've also heard about comedians being like, they do a set for months on end, and then all of a sudden they just lose it, and they need to give it a break to get that freshness back. Because this is another thing why stand-up is so hard, because when you do it best, it seems like you're just talking shit with your friends, right? So it looks like there's no artifice or anything to it.
When I'm at my best? I'm at my best when I'm sitting with my wife and I'm just doing everything I can to make her feel uncomfortable. and to get laughter out of her when I'm doing that, I'm like, yeah, I'm funny. And then I'll take, and I've actually, a lot of my routine has come from these conversations with my wife. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yep.
Yeah, I love that. When, by the way, I meant to bring up something, because I've been listening to some of your podcasts and stuff, and you were talking to Joachim Aikeri about stand-up too, right?
Yeah.
And you said something like your Norwegian is good enough that you could do stand-up in Norwegian, but you felt like you needed to you needed to do the English because that's your voice, that's you, right?
Yeah.
When I started in English. I used my affected British accent that you've heard me do, sets in. And initially, it's so weird because I'm from the countryside and I never fit in on the countryside. And I feel like people in the countryside, they're very local in their mind. They don't think globally. They don't think cosmically. Yeah. And so, or the ones that or something, right?
I'm sorry, I lost your sound.
So I've got this kind of a feeling about like, that countryside dialect to me represents, this is somebody I can't talk deep with, right? And I have a strong feeling in my own head that when I start talking in my similar dialect to people on stage, they'll be like, oh, okay, I see what this is. This is a farmer. And so I actually did English sets, and then for a while I was like, this is going all right. Maybe I'm one of those guys who's just really good at it and never bombs. And then my 10th time, it was 9 minutes of me just bombing unequivocally. And after that, I was like, well, this is a nice line in the sand. Let's switch to Norwegian. But it's interesting, coming back to the point we mentioned earlier about, keeping everything in mind when you're on stage. I find that I do more. Usually, my English just tends to be immaculate, grammar-wise, pronunciation-wise, and stuff like that. But I find that I make little errors more in English on stage than in Norwegian because that one little 0.1% of competency just gets you through when you're keeping all these other balls juggled in your head, right?
Sure. Yeah. No, I think I could.
Actually, you're muted to me right now.
Oh, really? Do you hear me now?
Yeah, we're having some issues, guys. I can't hear you anymore.
Oh, wow. Well, let's see. He can't hear me, everybody. So let me do this. I'm going to hang up on him.
Yeah.
And then we'll try it again. Technical issues. Boy, I need to hire a young Jamie like Joe Rogan has done. Take care of all these technical things. Let's go. Here we go. Ringing up Mr. Sørvik. How about now? You hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay, there we go. No, my podcast listeners know that anything can happen when it comes to the technical things here. So, par for the course.
Perils of live streaming.
Low budget podcasting.
Yep. Anyway, you were responding to my point about that little 0.1% of competency and how it just,
Yeah, and I forgot what I was going to say, but I think the way I look at it anyway is if I'm going to be at my best, I have to be the most myself, and that means I have to speak English.
Yeah.
How many other English-speaking comedians are out there? What's that guy's name from Australia?
James.
Yeah, he's an English speaker.
I saw him killing in Norwegian recently. It was so funny because his material tends to be really raunchy and edgy, and he's very cheeky scamp. And then he went on stage and in Norwegian, and he just said all these kind of words that like you're not supposed to say the mongoloid and words like that. Right. But with his when he spoke Norwegian, he sounded a bit like a child. Little pronunciation and grammar errors and stuff like that. He just sounded a bit simple, and then he starts throwing out this kind of language that's supposed to trigger us a bit, but it was just so hard to take seriously. So he totally got away with it, and I was like, "This is wrong. It's funny, but it's wrong." Yeah.
I guess I could see where I could work the language issue into my act. I kind of do in a way. I have a bit about my wife being Samisk and speaking in the Finnmark dialect. But I don't know. For now, and I think for forever, I'm just going to be speaking English in my act. And part of that has to do with marketing, because eventually I want to film a 1-hour solo show. And I want to be able to market that everywhere, not just in Norway.
As broad as possible. Yeah. Who that's stand-up savvy are you going to lose with that transaction? I'm sorry, it needs to be in Norwegian.
Exactly. Although I have seen some people in the audience rolling their eyes constantly as I'm up there doing my act, and I do believe it's because they're irritated because I'm speaking English. It's kind of funny. I can almost read their minds. They're thinking, "Oh my gosh, here's another foreigner in our country who doesn't speak the language," not knowing that I speak fluent Norwegian with a Finnmark accent.
Yeah, I find that really interesting when I see you make posts online, by the way, and you're writing in dialect as well.
Ah, yes.
And it's so jarring. Yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, when we're talking about stand-up savvy audiences and stuff like that, I have very minimal experience with it, and I haven't been much outside of Oslo. It's mainly Oslo. I did one set in Drammen. I did one set in Bergen. And then also I went across the border. I went to Sweden and did 2 sets in Gothenburg in February.
Ah.
And I don't know, this might be not enough to go on, but it seems to me the Swedes are more savvy. Like Norwegians, they need to be fed things a bit more. Whereas Swedes, they seem to follow the train of thought and the line. You know, sometimes a really good punchline can occur only in their head, right? But in Norway, that's hard work. There's an opener I'm using right now, by the way, for example, to talk about my dialect. And I just address it by saying that, yeah, I'm from Sunnmøre, this, peasant-ish region. And I go, despite my dialect, I've never had sex with a sheep, right? Or with a farm animal. And then they laugh at that. And I go, yeah, that makes me a bit of a black sheep in that area, which isn't so good because, and then the room is supposed to laugh. They generally don't laugh. They need to hear the line. And I'm like, oh, man.
I get that. I see that. And I think that is a cultural thing. Yeah. I talk a lot of shit about Norwegians. There's 5 million of them, and I'm not afraid of any of them. But one thing that I notice in Norway is that in general, I'll go so far as to say, for the most part, they have. It's almost like there's a barrier in front of their comedy door that you first have to get through before you can even open the door to being funny. It's a 2-step process, almost like you say they have to be fed the line maybe twice over in order to catch the punchline. It's a difficult thing.
After that, you set the baseline. Okay, now we can generalize and maybe take some leaps.
Yes. Yeah.
There goes my opener.
I don't know. Maybe they're a little too practical. They're like, you can't go into the satirical world as easily with Norwegians as you can with other people. They're like, that's not true. Why is that funny? That's not true.
It's such a small country, and it's so fresh to stand up to. I used to think I didn't like Norwegian humor and comedians because the only thing that would come to conscience, if you're in the countryside, the only thing you'd see or hear about would be major names, and that's stuff that caters to the lowest common denominator, right? So it's accessible to all, and that's how you get success. It's the same with huge stand-up in the U.S. too, right? You got some names that aren't exactly thought-provocating,
Yeah.
But then I came to Oslo and I saw the underground. And I was like, oh man, there's some innovative, funny stuff, that I would feel a bit, awestruck by, like pertaining to be a comedian among these people. So,
well, I tell you, I got really excited about the Oslo stand-up environment. That first time I went to Kaffe Myr was the first time being in Oslo to do stand-up, and I was there for about an hour and a half before show start. And there were a ton of comedians. And I always wondered what happened to them because they disappeared. I thought they were going to go on, but they disappeared. But they were hanging out, drinking and just yucking it up, smoking a little this, that, and the other. And there's maybe 7 or 8 of them, and these guys were hilarious, just sitting around talking. I'm like, is this what it's like in Oslo? And I got really excited, and I'm thinking, okay, now I'm going to try and book myself more often in Oslo. I did that second thing at Kaffe Myr where I saw you right around the first week of March. And then
the Steiner show. Yeah,
and then boom, coronavirus, and now nothing. I haven't done anything since then.
Oh, really? I've been up, actually tonight I'm going up the 18th time since June 3rd, so I've got a good streak going. I'm back to my normal rates.
Awesome. Yeah. I haven't done anything, but a part of that is COVID, the coronavirus, but part of it is this physical thing with my shoulder. My shoulder is so bad after that last operation. I'm just walking around in pain, and it's incredibly uncomfortable. So it's an issue. It's an issue to literally stand up, for 10, 15 minutes and do a set. It's hard. It's very difficult. Yeah. So. Well,
here's hoping that goes away and you can get back to lifting and performing as you're used to.
Yeah, I'm still training. I'm still doing that. Quite limited, of course, with a bad shoulder, there's a lot that I can't do, but I do what I can. I do what I can. And when it comes to my stand-up thing, I'm still writing. I'm still writing, so I'm real excited to try out this stuff. And I've kind of polished up some of the older stuff and whatnot. So eventually when I get out there, I'll pick it up right where I left off.
But you haven't been on since Corona broke out?
That's correct.
Okay, here's the thing I found really interesting because
no, I'm sorry. Once I've been out once. I did one Drummond show after Steinar's open mic.
Okay.
Yeah.
How was and that was that one. Yeah. How was that for you? Did you feel change having had that bigger break? You've done that before, I guess.
Yeah. My stand-up career, if we can even call it that, has been so choppy. Because it's been broken up by, since I started in March, I've had 2 shoulder operations. And after that, there's been a long period of not being able to do anything. So it's been really choppy. And it's very frustrating because I've had so much fun when I have I've been up maybe since March of last year, since March of 2019, I've been up maybe 14, 15 times. And that's not a lot. That's not a lot at all. So,
yeah, I don't know. For me, I started so late, and I don't have, you got a bunch of strings to your fiddle there, right? Whereas I'm kind of not. I haven't found like my niche in life yet, and it's getting to be a bit late. So I was like, okay, 34. Let's not play around. So I'm going up every chance I get, whether it's an open mic with jugglers or whatever. And so. Yeah, from September onward last year, I went up twice a week on average. And then came Christmas, and that 2-week break killed me. And then I went on stage afterwards, and I was like, oh man, was I ever funny? And I started questioning it. And it took me 2 or 3 gigs before I got comfortable again. And then comes COVID, and I was thinking, well, 3 months, that's gonna reset me completely.
Yeah.
But what I found was I was so much more appreciative of having a room and the energy in a room. I'd been sitting and writing in my room and stuff for a while. And to finally be able to play with the energy of a room, I got a newfound appreciation of that afterwards.
Well, that's what I'm looking forward to. You go through the writing process, you get this handful of material that you think is good, and then that excitement of finally, after so many months, getting to try. So when I finally get started, I won't be exactly starting from scratch because I have done it before, but it will be a new chapter because of the it's been almost 6 months now since the last time I was on. So
at least you got plenty of, it's obvious that you're quite comfortable on stage.
Yes.
As you've said, that comes from having done music for so long and stuff like that. So, that's a big deal already. A lot of people, they have a hard time getting over that part.
Yeah. It's good to be able to just go beyond all of that and just focus on the material. In that sense, I have an advantage. As a new beginner in stand-up, I have an advantage because I'm not afraid to be up there. And I'm not afraid to bomb either. I actually enjoy it. If I see that the audience isn't getting it, there's that little flash of disappointment where I'm thinking, my goodness, I thought this was funny. Of course, you think it's funny when you write it. You think it's good stuff, right? So there's that little flash of disappointment when I see that the crowd doesn't get it. But then I go right into challenge mode. It's like, okay, I'm going to see if I can, on the fly, if I can improvise this material that's not working and try and make it into something that they will accept. I enjoy that process.
Yeah, actually, I've had 2 sets since June where I just the room was like 4 people, 6 people. Yeah. So small, the energy is absent, so you can't really stoke and poke at that. And then you're just left with the room. And I'm after those 2 sets and feeling terrible afterwards, and I can't even listen through it and be like, oh, you could do this, or there's nothing to be gleaned from it.
Right.
And I'm like, next time I do that and it goes down that badly, I think halfway through I might just literally tear up my set list on stage and be like, all right, so what's going on here? Is it me not being funny, or you guys being picky? What's up? And just engage the room, because it's like, if they're not giving you anything, then you have to sort of, okay, well, let's go directly at you guys and what's going on.
There you go. And that's pretty much what I do. I go right in their face, and it's like, okay, how are we going to make this work? Forget the routine. Now it's over to improvisation, because obviously the routine's not working. So
I did that once, and the guy who went up before me was a guy who I'd only seen do like singer-songwriter music beforehand. And I thought he was like, oh, well, because a lot of people, you know, magicians as well, you can tell they're like, oh, comedians, they're so cool, you know. Just, you know, not to be too patting my
no, I get it. No,
my co-workers on the back, but yeah, you know, there's a certain allure to stand-up.
Sure.
And I was a bit annoyed. I was like, man, this guy's going up on stage for the first time. He's getting way more yucks than me. And after I just kind of went off on stage a bit about that. It's like, oh man, you guys, you know, I went into, again, that's Bill Hicks, right? Kind of like,
yep.
You fuckers, huh? And then they were laughing hard because apparently an annoyed me is a funny me. I find that when I tap into the annoyed and worked up energies and stuff, those tend to work for me. So
well, see, that's
clearly,
that's the self-discovery that comes with repetition. You know, the more sets we do, the more we're going to know ourselves, the more we're going to know the crowd. And I put that in quotes, the crowd, because even though each location is different, the crowd is the crowd. you know, it manifests itself in different ways depending on where you are, but the crowd is the crowd, and you have to learn how to deal with that. And the more often we do it, the more the easier it's going to be. And the fewer of those moments of self-doubt we will have. And that's what I look forward to, getting rid of the self-doubt.
Oh my goodness. Like there's been a few milestones early on where I was like, these are huge pointers as far as I'm concerned. One of the main ones is keeping your face when it's going poorly. If you can make it seem like you're not cracking, you're not sweating, you're not freaking out, that'll buy you a minute or two.
Yes.
But if they can tell you're sweating, it's like, oh man, this guy's in charge of the atmosphere in the room, and I'm not sure I trust him. You know.
No, I wonder how long is it going to go before the club scene gets back to normal? Because it looks like the corona situation is getting slightly worse. I mean, it's not a crisis here in Norway like it is in other countries, like the United States, for example, but it is getting the number of cases is rising, and I wonder what they're going to do with the club scene.
The numbers is still so far away from March, but
that's true.
From what I can tell, there's a number of places in Oslo that are now opening back up again. So I'm like, you know, Steinar's open mic, which you've been to a couple of times, where I met you the first time. That guy is such a good guy, trying to get everybody in. He's trying to be diverse. He doesn't just want stand-ups. He doesn't just want a bunch of white dudes. You know, he's like, okay, let's make sure this is a diverse and good show. And it's been obvious that there's a huge bottleneck in terms of bookings with him. Yeah. And where I would previously be able to get on every week, now it's like, I can do it twice this month.
Well, Steinar is
he's just about to get back to normal.
Yeah, he's becoming he is a key figure in the stand-up world in Oslo. What a guy. I love him.
Oh, me too, yeah. And his hosting is always on point as well.
Oh yeah, I love that guy. But you know, and after that last show I did, where I just totally dropped my act and I ended up singing and telling people what was going on in my heart, I did not have the heart to bill him for that booking.
Oh, really?
That's how much I love that guy. And because he booked me to do stand-up, and I ended up doing more of a soliloquy on brokenheartedness, and I ended up singing. So that's not what he booked me for. So
to be fair, I mean, have you seen Chappelle's 846?
Yes, I have. Since that night, I have seen it. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that like when I start talking about him, their hairs start standing up on my arm.
Yes.
That guy, he gives you like 6-7 laughs over the course of those 27 minutes or whatever. But you're captivated, and you were captivating, you know.
Thank you.
The fact that you just improvised an out, and you were like, you know what, I'm not ready to go there today, and then you just had this sort of somber moment, and closed it with this sort of. Resistance song with the acapella with the band. You know, that was no, that's their money's worth. I would have billed for that, but I appreciate your integrity on that point.
Well, yeah,
booked as a comic.
Well, thank you for that feedback and that compliment. But I talk about being in the moment. I was so much in the moment there that I realized I couldn't continue trying to be funny. It was that simple. I just I couldn't. I was thinking about everything going on back home in the States. I was thinking about my son dying and all that stuff, and I just had to take a step back and tell the audience what was going on. And I'm glad I did. I'm glad I did that. Shout out to Steinar again for keeping the door open for me. I was seriously worried that he was going to get pissed and forbid me to come back, because I don't know. I guess it's. I have a loyalty to the booking. You know, I was booked to do this. This is what I should do, but I didn't do this. I did that. So
they thought they were booking this. Yeah. No, yeah, if I know, I was dead sure that Steiner was not going to mind it at all because, you know, the room was enjoying itself and it was a poignant moment and stuff, and the show moved on. It didn't put a dampener or anything, you know. And I'd be interested to hear that material because I'm curious how you make your son's death funny. But I'm sure I'll get to hear that someday when you're on stage.
That is probably the most solid part of my routine. I've got that part down solid. I've done it often enough in front of a crowd, and I've rewritten things to the point to where that's a solid piece, and it makes people think. It makes me think. It helps me to heal, and that's why I do it. Because I don't know. I've said this so many times before on my podcast. I have no clue how to work through the death of my son. I have no idea what to do. So I just put it into my routine. It's crazy. It's weird. It's a huge challenge, but that challenge is helping me to heal. I don't know how. Have you seen?
There's a special by what's his name? He's the guy who's the kooky brother in King of Queens, Patton Oswalt. Right?
Yes, Patton Oswalt.
Have you seen his Annihilation show?
No, I haven't.
He talks about the death of his wife.
No, I haven't seen that. No.
It's rough, man, and it's devastating and funny in equal measure. It's so good.
I should check that out.
Yeah, definitely. I would recommend it.
I've never seen any of his stuff. I've never seen any of his stuff. I don't know. I don't want to. Yeah, I guess I don't know. I guess it's just happened that way that I've never seen any of his stuff like. So I'm really not familiar with him as a stand-up at all. But I'll check that out.
He's definitely a good stand-up. As soon as I started doing stand-up, I've gotten way more respect for the craft. Actually, before I got tickets to see Chappelle in March, which was because it's in a huge hangar. You know, it's not in a room. You don't feel that intimacy at all. Yeah. And so it was kind of weak. But the month before, I saw Judah Friedlander, who had never checked out before. I knew he's a funny dude. But then for 90 minutes, me and my friend were just looking at each other, a fellow comic, and we were just kind of giving each other the eyes that said, how's he doing this? How is he leaving us breathless for 90 minutes just like that, you know?
Can you see yourself doing a 1-hour solo show?
Yeah, I can picture it. It's brick by brick. You stack it, right?
Exactly. So. I had a whole plan mapped out for 2020. I was going to, actually, if we go back to last summer, Bobek and I had planned to book ourselves into like a 45-minute show, a dual show. I would do 25 minutes, and he would do 25 minutes. And my plan was to do that all summer, and then slowly build up from having a 25-minute set to a 25-minute set to a 30-minute set and so on, and build up to an hour so that I could then record a 1-hour solo special in December of 2020. So we were going to do that touring all summer, and then all summer of last year, and then all the way through this year up until December. And now all of that is just out the window because of the Corona thing. But that was my plan, was to just build it up brick by brick, as you say.
Yeah. That's another thing I find so fascinating about comedy, is that it's eminently learnable. You just need to put in the work, and you'll see those gains, those increments.
Do you think it's frustrating, though, to have, because most of the spots that are available to us are those 5, 10, maybe 15-minute long periods on the mic. Do you find that frustrating when it comes to building out your material?
A little bit, but at the same time, I acknowledge that there's some basic chops that I still haven't gotten reliably down yet. And if you can't do a type 5 reliably, how are they going to give you 15, right? So
exactly.
And it's interesting. This one of the things that podcast that I talked about with the stand-up. One of the guys running it says. He says, in the beginning you're unconsciously incompetent, then you become consciously incompetent, then you become consciously competent, and then you become unconsciously competent. So you start out not knowing that you suck. And at that point, it was easy for me to do 20 minutes because I had no idea, and I'm glad I don't have recordings of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think if somebody threw 15 minutes at me now, I'd find it hard to do a red thread, to have the right pacing, and it's probably something that'll take some time to pick up. But I'd love the opportunities, and as you say, it's hard to get any longer sessions nowadays. So.
How much solid material do you have now at the moment?
It's a hard
solid
question. I know solid. I have an 8-minute set that I was really pleased with, and that kind of retired, or at least for now. And now I've got this 5-minute routine down that I do if I want to do a good set. And then I don't know. I've got a bunch of 2-minute bits that I'm looking to flesh out.
Okay.
So I don't know. I would say in terms of material and jokes that I kind of want to keep persisting with. I'm sure I've got half an hour that I would trust to go on stage with.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that was what was happening with me, was that I was bombing quite often, or at least not satisfied with myself quite often, because I was constantly trying out new material.
Yep.
And right around the time of when Corona started, right around that time at Steiner's open mic, I decided, okay, you know what? I know that I've got a solid 15 minutes. Let me just repeat this solid 15 minutes for a while.
Yep.
And make it even more solid, and then branch out from there. I think that's part of the reason why I was so frustrated before Steiner's open mic. I was constantly trying out new stuff. And, of course, when you try out new stuff, half of it will work, but half of it is garbage. So that's a lot of disappointment.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah, I prefer to mix and match and have okay, I know these are some good lines. I'll have a good opener, I'll have a good closer, and I'll throw in some stuff in the middle and hope it goes well.
Well, Jon Jarde said to me, he said, I need to allow myself to enjoy myself. Of course, you want to stretch out a little. Of course, you want to try new stuff and challenge yourself, but you also need to allow yourself to enjoy yourself.
Yeah.
Stick to stick to what you know is going to work, so that you can get that experience of having a successful set, whether it's 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever. Yeah, and that was good advice. That was good advice.
Yeah, let's not eat more shit than we have to. Yeah.
It's not like I like the taste of it,
Yeah. All right. I know it builds character, but it does not taste good.
So give me a stand-up hero that you have, and tell me why he or she is your hero.
Oh, there's one guy for me that's kind of unparalleled, and that's Stuart Lee. He's a British guy. STEW. And he's basically a guy who's been going since the 80s, and he had a problem finding his niche. And after a while, he realized how you cultivate a certain audience. And he's beloved by critics, panned by the general, the Sun and stuff like that.
I see. Yeah.
It requires some working knowledge of what comedy can be and what normal comedy is. And then he kind of toys with it. He deconstructs it. Like I said, he did that one joke where he's talking about, I didn't say that because I'm not funny in real life. I wrote it down and then came back 2 weeks later. That's most comedians would not open up the hood and let you take a gander underneath like that,
No, that's being quite vulnerable in front of the audience.
Yeah. And he's I'll toss some links at you if you fancy, because that guy, he's the guy who made me want to get up and do it. Bill Hicks made me think that it was a noble thing to do, but he's the guy who made me think, oh, this can be done. Yeah. Send
me some links then afterwards. Yeah, because I've never seen him before. I've never heard of him, but send me some links. Yeah.
I just wanted to say though before, because I know we're reaching the hour mark, but there's one thing that was kind of really aha moment for me last year, and that was do you know Daniel Ruba?
No.
Okay, he's a guy from Trondheim, and he's a very charming dude, very funny, and he used to host at a place called Misfornøyelsesbar, which is this just really cramped, dank, narrow attic, which you can't have more than 5 people in now without breaking quarantine rules, right? So that's out now, but it used to be the most intimate atmosphere you could imagine. And I kept pestering that dude and being like, hey, can I get up on stage? Because I really want to do that room. And he's like, yeah, sure, down the line. And for months he just, played me off. And then after a while, he was like, okay, I can put you on. How about late December? And I look at the lineup and I see when that finally comes up, and it's got a woman called Dina Hashem in it. You ever heard of her?
Yes, yeah.
Yes, Dina Hashem, for those who don't know, she's an Arab-American comedian, right? And she's done 5 minutes on Conan. She's opened for Mark Maron. She's won roast battles in New York. She's done the New York scene for 10 years. Still not working full-time comedian, which is kind of depressing for the prospects. But anyway, she went on stage, and then she couldn't watch the Norwegian sets and understand those. So I basically took advantage of that, and it's like, okay, she's down on her phone, let's bother her. And,
yes.
And I asked her a bunch of stuff, and I tried to relate to her, and she basically mirrored back what I was thinking, is that you go through life, you're awkward, you're not the funny, gracious, life of the party guy, and then you go on stage and you can turn that outward and make it a superpower. What you perceive as a weakness is now a strength. That to me was a huge game changer. And when you're talking earlier about bombing not being bad, usually in life, if something goes hard, for me, I'm like, oh, maybe this isn't for me. You know, it doesn't take a lot to discourage me. But if I have a terrible set, I'll stew for 5 minutes, and then I'll be like, okay, let me at him. You know, I want to rectify this right away.
There's something challenging about stand-up, and that makes me at least want to plow through it and make it right. When it's not going, I've got to stick to it. I've got to, you know, if it's not right then and there during the set where I'm literally going to plow through it, it's afterwards when I'm doing that evaluation. Okay, how could I have made this better? And I love that challenge. As much as it's painful and uncomfortable, I love that challenge. I just love it. Yeah.
Yeah, I had no idea. I would have, but then again, I also wonder, life, like comedy, is timing, and I wonder if I'd figured this out when I was 24, and I like going on stage. Would I have been burnt out by now? Would I have not been stressing out and trying to learn as much so fast? Because, you know, would I not been in the right place mentally to do it? Maybe the timing was just right for me to go at it, both feet, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm trying not to question it too much. I know that when I'm 50, I'll be really annoyed with myself if I put limits on myself because, I'm 35, you know.
Yeah, you know, as a 50-year-old, 51, actually, that is one thing that I can definitely speak on. I'm so glad that I have never held myself back, ever. In my entire adult life, held myself back from doing something I wanted to do, trying something that I wanted to try. So I have so many interesting experiences that I've learned from. Not that everything has been success, but I have learned so much from it, so that by the time I'm this age, I'm pretty much fearless. I'm not afraid to try anything, and I love it. It's a great feeling. It's a great feeling.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I thought I wouldn't be able to deal with this, though. I was so sure that it would make me beat myself up, and I didn't initially, but after a while, you start trusting yourself a bit more.
Yeah.
But actually, what I did beforehand, when I moved to Oslo, I started working as trying to wrangle people on the street to donate to charity, like monthly donations to, you know, charities for kids' education and stuff like that in the third world, or whatever the politically correct phrase nowadays is. I'm not sure. But anyway, and then I did that, and I got burnt out a bit. But it basically meant that from 10 to 6 every day, I was walking out on the street trying to make 5-minute friends. Yeah. And after that, I was like, well, going on stage, you know, I'll do that now. It's not that big a deal. Yeah. And it's not.
Yeah.
But it's so funny. Everybody comes up to you and goes, it's so brave that you go on stage. And I'm like, it's the lowest stakes ever. If you screw up in stand-up, nobody laughs at you. It's the opposite of what happens when you screw up in other avenues.
Exactly. Yeah. Although there is a certain amount of anonymity that one, as a new comic, can enjoy.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? You know, if we bomb, it's not that big a deal because no one's really expecting much from us. And we're aware.
Nobody's going to sell the story to TMZ.
Exactly. And we're aware of that. And there's a certain amount of freedom in that knowledge. But I wonder how, what's his name? Zahid Ali, someone like that, if they have a bad set, I wonder how hard that hits them, because there is a crowd with expectations from someone like that.
Yeah.
I wonder how that is.
I saw him live last year, just when I was really
I was
getting into it.
I was in that show that I was talking about in Mjøndalen. That was with him. Yeah.
When I saw him, he was just getting back into the saddle after a break, and he had all these notes and stuff, and it was so obvious that he, you know, hadn't marshaled everything yet. And he was pretty upfront about that, which is fine.
Well, yes, but, matter of fact, he's the one that told me the very first time I went on, he was there. This was in Drammen. He was working on his new material, and he had this big, 4x4 notepad with like 10 pages of notes, and he was scribbling, and he took it out with him and stuff. And afterwards I went up to him. I said, "Hey, man, I'm new. This is my first time. I had so much trouble remembering. It's okay to bring out." He says, "Yeah, man, bring a notepad or put it on your phone and look at your phone." He's the one that told me that. I never would have considered that. And I've actually only done it once. I did it once at that time at Steinert. I actually had some notes that I had written. Yeah.
You can have some fun with that. That's one of the things I really like about stand-up, and one of the things that the Stuart Lee that I mentioned is so good at showing, that it's such a pliable medium. Like, I had this one set where I was basically it's just me bitching about different things, and as I go down the set list, at one point I go, another thing that pisses me off is, and then I just pick up the set list and I go, actually, this isn't so much a set list, it's just a list of shit that pisses me off. and that's enough to get the crowd laughing.
Yeah.
And I've used the set list to get a laugh. It's the main thing is that if you come across as clumsy or stupid, it doesn't matter as long as you arrive at funny.
Sure. Yeah. Well, hey, listen, I got to run. My beloved wife, my beloved Snoopy, is about to step out, and she needs a hug before she goes out there. If I don't calm her down before she goes out into the world, she'll hurt people. So.
Yeah, that story about her Sami knife isn't, it's not made up.
Hey, man, there's a lot of truth in my stand-up material, okay?
That's how I like it.
But listen, man, I enjoyed talking with you. I enjoyed getting into your head a little bit and hearing your views on stand-up and hearing how it's going. I think you got a good future in front of you. I liked you from the very first time I listened to you. So, good luck with everything you do.
I used to not be able to take compliments, but I've gotten used to it. So thank you very much.
Yeah,
do keep me in mind if you hear about Mjøndalen or something needing some fresh meat.
Yeah, I'm gonna do that. I tell you, it's a great place to perform. Next time something's going on out there, I'll give you a holler. All right, thanks for being on.
Thank you so much for having me on, man. It was fun.
Pleasure. All right, bye everybody.
I'm coming home. Yes, I am. Yes, I'm coming home.